Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Pakistan Zindabad and Allahu Akbar. What a great morning. What a great morning. Valiant sons of the soil defended the sovereignty and integrity of their motherland, and the world was there to witness. Enemy failing at every step. We are here with the details and a lot of what you all want to hear right now. But joining you in the studios with today's transmission, this special transmission that we've been bringing you, uncovering what is happening on our borders, inside our country, and on the front lines against the enemy. I'm Muzzammil Khan. Joining me, Eesha Rehan. Assalamu alaikum, Eesha. How are you?
Walaikum assalam, Muzzammil. I am feeling absolutely brilliant, and I think I speak for myself and yourself and the whole Pakistani nation.
Entire nation, yes.
When I say that we feel absolutely victorious because our brilliant Pakistani army has carried out an exceptional operation against India and has stood in the face of baseless aggression against India and have shielded us in the face of an iron wall. We feel exceptionally great, and we are very excited that we actually have Air Vice Marshal IJAZ MALIK in the studio with us today to talk about not just this befitting response, but this historic response that Pakistan has given to India. And let's take a debrief about what actually happened in the operation called Bunyan Marsoos. Please, Mr. IJAZ, take the stage and unfold the conversation for us regarding what happened in this operation.
Thank you very much. We should be very proud as a nation this morning that we are sitting here to discuss our glories, the heights of our self-esteem and national prestige which we have been able to achieve by the grace of Almighty Allah. And let's bow our heads towards Allah Almighty, who enabled all of us, starting from media to our valiant sons on borders and our Shaheens in the airs, who dominated each and every aspect of this full spectrum warfare. I would like to focus myself on the air power, because these operations were predominantly in the air, whether from the aircraft itself, from the response from the air defense system, or the offensive that we launch through our missiles using the medium of air. So just for your audience, I would like to just orientate ourselves that what is the era that we are talking about. After 1990 Operation Desert Storm, air power became the center stage of any conflict. In Iraq, First Gulf War, Second Gulf War, Afghanistan, Syria, followed by Libya, and then lately the ongoing atrocities in Gaza. Everywhere air power has been massively used, but this particular engagement or campaign which we conducted in the recent days, it is unique in the sense that previously air powers were being used against almost benign enemies. They were disproportionately placed, but this was the first time in modern history where two strong air forces, let's give credit to IAF at least for their numerical strength. Yes. They are very presumably very potent air force with 850 aircraft, state-of-the-art platforms, hardware from Western sources, from Soviet sources, European sources. And what are the results? The results are amazing. It's not only India or IAF who are still shell-shocked. It's the world which is asking questions that how is it possible that a nation smaller in size, perceived to be diplomatically isolated as per enemy propaganda, and a fragmented society, highly politically polarized society, struggling on economic front, how did they emerge as a united nation which had a resolve, which was visible not only in the streets of Pakistan, but all over Pakistan in all segments.
All right, sir. I have a question in mind over here. As you talked about Operation Desert Storm and air power becoming the center of attention after Operation Desert Storm, this happy morning brings us closer to our armed forces. It brings us closer to each other as a nation. And talking about the prowess that we have now achieved here in today's day and age, India tried to malign Pakistan's image. They tried with various campaigns on social media, on their television. They decided to put an information blackout on about 100 crore people of their state. How do you see that India, with every step, had to face a big defeat, a defeat that was full of embarrassment, and now there's a ceasefire in place? What level of frustration do you think the enemy is on?
You know, I will start from the end of your question. Imagine once President Trump offered mediation on the core issue of Kashmir, India very, arrogantly refused. I mean, they were not even ready to listen to any sane suggestion for composite dialogue, because they thought that they have acquired so much of military might that they can be at their own to sort out this region. But that wasn't so, which has been proven in the very brief conflict, I would say. I mean, I was very sure what our armed forces and Air Force in particular is capable of doing. But I never expected a country like India, to just crumble, to just, shatter, in air. Their entire might evaporated. Where are their, center of gravity like Rafale or S-400 and, Israeli supplied state-of-the-art drones? What have they achieved? It was just like a house of cards that world is shocked to, witness. But the credit goes to our leadership. I will be very specific about the Air Force. After 2019, once Mr. Modi said that if we had Rafales, probably we didn't have to face the embarrassment through Operation Swift Retort. So they went into massive upgradation of their Air Force, and in parallel, our Air Force, through obviously within our limited resources, we went also into a phased modernization. We acquired equipment from our all-time friend China. We know J-10Cs, the onboard beyond visual range missiles, and of course we had developed the Block 3 of indigenously developed with Chinese collaboration, of course, JF-17 Thunder. So all in all, this enabled us to have first shot capability to engage enemy aggressively within their own airspace. And our air chief very candidly and very categorically mentioned just at the start of this conflict that this time we would not exercise constraint and we would take the air battle into Indian airspace.
Right. You can buy all the jets that you want, but you cannot buy courage. That is born. That is something that you're born with, that is in your heart. And with this, we have Brigadier retired Shahid Jahangir Saab. He's a senior analyst and he's joining us online also. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and a great morning with a great message. Allahu Akbar, Pakistan Zindabad. What are your comments on Pakistan Armed Forces and Pakistan Air Force and the Naval Force that has successfully thwarted enemies' designs?
Thank you very much. First of all, I will bow my head to Allah Ta'ala that it has granted us the victory, because victory is only from Rabbul Alameen. Having said that, as a veteran gentleman, I'm very, very proud and stand very tall because these are youngsters. What they have done, they have written a history, and like their predecessors, their history, their legacy, and their creed. Especially the Pakistan Air Force has done a wonderful job, which will be written in the air history with the golden words. Our adversary, the India, was very proud of their Rafale, and they said that this will change the strategic equations in South Asia. But our boys are youngsters because of their training, because of the hard work which their trainers have done with them, and the dedication, and most of all, because of the special mercy of Allah Ta'ala, we have done a miracle. These youngsters have done a miracle. And I can understand as a veteran that 1.5 hours of that fight, in which there were jammers, there were electronic warfare going on, C4I was going on, and they were facing a live enemy. Any wrong move on their part for the flick of an eye would have resulted the other way around. So that is what PF has done. As far as the Navy, I would say they have done a wonderful job by keeping the enemy at bay. The enemy brought along the Vikrant aircraft carrier, but did not dare to enter into the Pakistani waters or the exclusive economic zone. Army has done a wonderful job on all the platforms, whether it is countering the Indian propaganda, media warfare, the military readiness, counter informations from what propaganda India was doing. So my salute to all the three forces. They have done a wonderful job. They have repeated their ancestors' legacy, and inshallah, they will keep on doing that. You see, it is today that because of their hard work, dedication, and unflinching professional competence, that the strategic equation, what we call is in the South Asia, has changed. India is no more the dictator of the South Asia, and you will see it will have a long time repercussions to come. I also say that their trainers, the boys, those who have participated in this, their trainers also need an appreciation that they have put their heart and soul to bring them to a platform where they can deliver.
About the military might, and when we talk about our foot soldiers, I would like to engage Air Vice Marshal retired IJAZ Malik Saab, who's joining us here in our studios with us. Sir, when we talk about military might and we have these questions in our mind, that land-to-land combat, air-to-air combat, land-to-air combat, all these different variations of defending oneself against an adversary that outnumbers you in terms of equipment, people. When we take courage into account, what would be your comments regarding this sole word of courage?
Yes, courage comes from conviction, from our iman, that we are fighting for a cause, that is defending the frontiers of our motherland. This differentiates us from many who are just professional soldiers. And then this courage is further augmented with training. In Pakistan Air Force particularly, I would say, we have world's highest training standards. For example, our combat commander school, where we teach our fighter pilots and our air defense controllers under real wartime scenarios, where we burst all safety consideration of peacetime, and we operate our machines to the best of their abilities and outside their performance parameters. That gives us the courage, that gives us the strength. And then the standards are so high. Just to share with you, it's a very common routine in Air Force that base commanders, they would just walk into any squadron crew room and get themselves in any of the missions which is scheduled for that moment, and they fight alongside with the youngsters of that squadron.
MashaAllah.
And same is applicable to the Chief of Air Staff. He would, it's not only that he leads the fly past very valiantly and professionally on 23rd March. It is very much our culture that Chief of the Air Staff would go to any base unannounced, go to the air defense alert hut and go for a training mission with the youngsters. It has two purposes. It gives the feeling of ownership to the fighters in the field. It gives them that sense of attachment to their seniors, and at the same time it enables the senior leadership to know and feel the pulse of the fighting force that they are commanding. So this bondage has been a hallmark of the Air Force. So it is visible in all facets of what Air Force has done. And many of your viewers may not know that Air Force was, because Air Force per se is a high-tech and technology intensive outfit. So Air Force has been into what we earlier used to call C4I.
Right.
But later on, Air Force had established a cyber command.
Right.
So what we have seen in last few days, most of those were operations in the cyber domain were successfully conducted by cyber command.
So I would interrupt you right here because I have a question for Brigadier Retired Shahid Jagir Saab. So when we talk about cyber command and cyber warfare, do you think that the enemy was taken by surprise when Pakistan launched its cyber attack defending itself?
Look, we are living in a 21st century where cyber warfare, electronic warfare, the social media, print media, electronic media, this has become a very important segment of waging a war, and they play a very important role when you talk of taking the war to the enemy borders. I was very happy to see that we displayed, all the three services displayed the excellent coordination, and they conducted the joint operations wonderfully and in a professional manner. They did not got panicked, neither they got panicked, nor they got into the bravado of under the emotions. They absolutely calm. They were absolutely calm because, and that was because they were trained. They were trained to deal with such type of environment. Plus, I appreciate the present Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Naval Staff, Chief of Naval Staff, which provided these men on the ground, the men who matters, all the latest equipment, especially with the threat perception of India, at whatever the costs the nation has paid and the Pakistan Armed Forces have paid, this is a time that their display of professionalism has made a difference. it was the job of the seniors to provide them with the required equipment, having a cutting edge technology, whether in the weaponry, whether in the platform, whether in the cyber platform, whether in the electronic warfare, and what not. They provided it, come what may. And I also say that the nation was behind these its armed forces. They bear with it because we know we have a scarlet threat from India. This threat will not go away till the time the Indian leadership do not understand the environment and do not realize the ground realities. Unless they do that, this region of South Asia will remain volatile. And I again say that the warfare of 21st century is the first ever warfare between the two nuclear armed countries. Mark these words, because 21st century has not seen any war between two rivals, and that is why you see the Israeli drones, which were very successful in Lebanon, and they were absolutely not successful in Pakistan, because now they were facing the real enemy, who had courage, who had knowledge, who was training, who was everything to deal with. So we shot them down, and we are proud of it.
Exactly. You know, talking about the diligence and strength of the Pakistani army, we need to dive into the fact how the Pakistani army was able to strategically target the Indian S-400 defense system, and this led them to a $1.5 billion loss. How does this reflect on the preparedness and the strength of the Pakistani army and the ill preparedness of the Indian army?
Look, in the armed forces of Pakistan and are one organization in Pakistan which do not work for today. They work for a year ahead, as far as the threat perception is concerned. If you look back, the day the Modi started just jingoism of political advantage, you would have seen the Chief of Army Staff visited the air headquarters, visited the naval headquarters, visited the field formations on the ground to validate the operational plans. One. Second, the targets like S-400, which we were talking about, are always in our manual of war, I would say. We know that in case of a war, and we are trained also that in case of a war, at which ladder of the war, which target is to be picked up. As you have seen in the conduct of Pakistani response and during the Indian aggression, we have not targeted any of the non-military targets, because we know we were monitoring the targets, military targets, which we have shot down, and we will keep on monitoring in the peacetime also. So to conclude it, I would say that these high-value targets are always in the inventory, and it is always taken on whenever the what environment demands, and there is a reason for have these, because we understand, as I have said, that we are two nuclear rival countries. We have to understand our responsibility as a nuclear capable state. We have to be more mature in escalating the war leader than the other countries which are not nuclear capable, because we understand the destruction, the casualties, the economic destruction which will be caused if we go to that point of the ladder where we resort to these means. These means are available to us. Uh, Everything ready, cooked, ready to be served if India wants it. But at the same time, uh, I'm very happy personally as a professional soldier that all the Pakistani leadership, Pakistani political leadership and military leadership, they exercise restraint and they have given a befitting response at the time of their own choice and their own place. As our DDISPR has been time and again saying that don't think that we will not respond to you. Not a drop of blood will be go unpaid. Uh, we took our time, we exercised the restraints because of the tactical and operational reason. And India and the world was thinking, and few in our Pakistan was also thinking that Pakistan has backed out. No, nobody, we will not back out in front of India, come what may, even to the last drop of our blood and last bullet in the gun. So he took out everything. He told the world media that how India is making them fool. He told the world with the rep of the PF and Navy that with concrete electronic signatures, with concrete photographs, with concrete videos, that how India is making fool.
Right. Brigadier Saab, unfortunately, we're a little short on time, but that was a candid analysis on how we have managed to defend ourselves and how the world has taken heed of our defensive actions. And now, since the ceasefire is in place, it's a good day. It's a good day for both the countries, for both the people, because war is that is dangerous for economies, it's dangerous for regional stability, it's dangerous for peace. And with this question, I would now like to engage Air Vice Marshal retired IJAZ MALIK Saab, who's in the studios with us. Sir, since ceasefire is in place right now, brokered by the United States of America, UAE, and other friendly nations and states, also China asked both the nations to de-escalate the situation. How do you see this ceasefire holding up in the next few days?
Well, I think we should be sitting finger crossed, because given the history of India, we should not expect that they will be so cooperative, because they accepted, in fact not sorry to say accepted, I mean they initiated this ceasefire because it suited them for the moment to save their grace in this defeat. So that was obviously for that moment it was I think considered by the leadership as a gain, but subsequently how are they going to implement the preconditions that Pakistan had asked the powers who ensured this or who managed on behalf of India this concession from Pakistan, that Pakistan agreed to halt the operations once we were in a position of strength. And second thing, I will just give a brief comment that I am just wondering now, how are they going to follow up on media to do the perception management for their own internal audience as well as the world, where they have been boasting around about their might and their economic strength and all that. Because in previous wars, both sides had their own notion of victory after every conflict. For example, in 1965, where we have totally wiped out IAF in first 3 days of the conflict, where our Navy has totally blocked Indian Navy, where our valiant army had captured areas deep inside India. Still after the war, India said it's a stalemate, and they never open-heartedly accepted the victory of Pakistan. But those were the environment where the media was not there. This war has been conducted right in the media limelight, international media.
Everything was being broadcast.
So everything was being broadcast. That's why we see the follow-up in all major print and electronic media houses all over the world. So I wonder, how are they going to manage through their blatant lies, the construct that they have been propagating throughout this full spectrum war. So as a student of military history, that is a question that I would still like to have an answer, but I'm sure it's the time which will give us the answer to this question as well.
Exactly. And adding on to this, how the Indian media has been adding more fire to the fuel and has actually played an integral part in manufacturing this conflict. We in the 21st century are now included in 5th generational warfare, and India has used their tactics in media manipulation and false propagandas against Pakistan. However, Pakistan was able to diligently and strategically use this warfare tactic. They were able to hack over 2,500 of Indian surveillance cameras. We were able to hack into BJP's official website and also hijack the Indian Air Force data. So what does this say about the reflection of Pakistan's use of 5th generation warfare, and how are we using this very diligently?
Marvelous, I think, one word, because we never knew that we have so much of strength, we never knew that we have so much of synergy, that all across all spectrum of media, people like you, youngsters, the elder veteran who were like us, who were available 24/7, and the discussions, and are offensively engaging even the Indian channels. Some of our friends from media, they were so aggressively and candidly defending the Pakistan point of view, sitting online with the Indian media. I mean, this is really a moment of jubilation, not only for the people in uniform, but people sitting in front or behind the camera as well, because we have really done well, extremely well, I would say.
Now, so when we bring into light the fact that the Indians and the state of India decided to ban all international channels in India, they decided to ban over 8,000 X accounts, they decided to ban multiple Instagram handles, and there was an information blackout in India. Now when they come out of it, and now when slowly the truth starts to make its way to the Indian people, how would they feel about their state?
I really don't know, because they are still in a state of shock. They would take time to recover, but I think the world would not be same for them ever from this moment onward, because Pakistan Armed Forces has cut India to its size.
Yes.
Pakistan media warrior have broken that myth where we always thought, as India has access through satellite channels, through their worldwide acceptance, through brainwashing through movies of Bollywood, which always portrayed the richness of India, the slogans, hollow slogans like shining India and what and what not. I think now is the time to see the real India, where there is poverty, where there is no water and sanitation available to multi-crore people, where there is food insecurity, and all those problems which are associated, or which are the byproduct for such a populous country, but which engages itself not in the human development of their people, but to have their hegemonic design in the region, and trying to live on those mythologies of centuries old, where they of Hindutva and things like that. I think Indian people should now revisit to choose their leadership, from extremist RSS leaders to those.
So just a small comment here, because this comes to my mind as we're talking about them being the aggressors. Just a quick comment, which is, had we not retaliated, because when they were the aggressors, there was word spreading out and there was a threshold being created that the enemy would then use that threshold to create a new norm. How well do you think this answer has pushed the enemy back and saved us from the creation of that new threshold, that new norm that would have been created? That doesn't matter if you put a missile or two on Pakistani soil, they don't retaliate. How well do you think they've gotten reply?
Well, this is, I think this is what was required. I was one of those, frontlines commentator, analysts sitting on channels and saying, that there is a window available to us. We have to avail this window to restore our prestige.
Yes.
And we did that. Had we not done, it would have been the same like 2019, where we neutralized IAF, where we achieved, but despite being on right, we were taken by world media or world power centers just as a almost compliant neighbor for a hegemonic huge monster sitting in this subcontinent.
Right, sir. Thank you for your candid view and your analysis on this topic. It was great having you here. It was great having this chat with you on this day that our nation is proud. Our nation is proud because our brave sons of the soil managed to defend their integrity and the integrity of their motherland and the territorial sovereignty and the sovereignty of the motherland with might, and giving a loud word out to the world that Pakistan wants peace, Pakistan stands for peace, Pakistan does not like violence, but if tested, Pakistan will retaliate in defense. We will be back with this transmission, but after a short break. Stay tuned.
Gave a befitting response to Indian aggression and made it clear to the world that we are a dignified nation. He announces Day of Gratitude nationwide to mark the success of Operation Banyan al-Marsus. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says that Pakistan had offered independent investigations into the Pahalgam incident, but India aggressively targeted civilians. In response, our valiant armed forces gave a befitting reply to the Indian aggression. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif thanks the Tri-Services Chiefs, General Asim Munir, Air Chief Marshal Zahir Ahmed Babar Sidhu, and Naval Chief Admiral Naveed Ashraf for their leadership that led to a great victory. Pakistan and India agree to a ceasefire with immediate effect. Prime Minister Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif thanks U.S. President's proactive role for regional peace. President Trump promises substantial increase in trade with Pakistan and India, says we'll see to find a solution to the Kashmir dispute. The Prime Minister thanks Chinese President Xi Jinping and all friendly countries for standing by Pakistan in difficult time. China acknowledges Pakistan's restraint and appreciates its responsible approach under challenging circumstances. During telephone conversation, China reaffirms to stand firmly by Pakistan in upholding its sovereignty, territorial integrity, and national independence. The international community welcomes the decision by Pakistan and India to enforce a full and immediate ceasefire following days of deadly jet fighter, missile, drone, and artillery strikes. Deputy Prime Minister Akbar briefs foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Turkey about the current regional situation, lauded Saudi and UAE's constructive diplomatic efforts to promote peace and stability in the region. CNN journalist Nick Robertson has stated that Pakistan's decisive response forced India to retreat under pressure, paving the way for ceasefire. The Indian military has admitted that Pakistan Army inflicted large-scale destruction on its installations in the retaliatory action. Pakistan fully reopens its airspace for all types of flights, flowing and following a temporary closure amid the recent regional tensions. According to the Pakistan Airports Authority, all airports across the country are now fully operational for normal flight schedules. At least 21 people, including several children, have been killed in Israeli airstrikes on Gaza as a month-long blockade worsens the humanitarian crisis in besieged enclave. Russian President Putin invites Ukraine for direct talks on the 15th of May after European leaders urge Moscow to agree to a 30-day ceasefire. Well, viewers, those were the headlines. For more news updates, stay tuned, or you can follow us on our social media at world.ptv. This is Naila Shuja. Take care.
Our forefathers, they have sacrificed immensely, and we have sacrificed a lot for the creation of this country, and we know how to defend it.
formidable, the aware, the hunter, the game changer, the vigorous dragon, the J-10C. These aircraft are well known to be the eyes and ears of Pakistan Air Force in air.
Pakistan has always made efforts to maintain peace in the region, not for people of both the countries, but for the neighboring countries as well. Pakistan's armed forces and the nation will not bear any threat or any misadventure. Pakistan will respond with full force as Pakistan Armed Forces and its people are united to protect the motherland.
हाथ में अब तलवार उठा मैदान में आ तकबीर तेरी तकबीर तेरी तकबीर तेरी सब दुनिया है जागीर तेरी तारीख में है ये बतलाया ऐ मर्द मुजाहिद जा जरा अब वक्त शहादत है आया अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर बातिल की नजर ललचाई है इंसान पे तंग खुदाई है सर कुफर ने देख उभारा है सर कुफर ने देख उभारा है इस्लाम को फिर ललकारा है तकदीर ने ये दिन दिखलाया ऐ मर्द मुजाहिद जा जरा अब वक्त शहादत है आया अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर जाती है बेशक जाए जब न तेरा झुकने पाए गाजी को मौत से क्या डर है गाजी को मौत से क्या डर है जाते न जहादे अकबर है कुरान में है ये फरमाया ऐ मर्द मुजाहिद जा जरा अब वक्त शहादत है आया अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर अल्लाहु अकबर महबूब खुदा के परवाने के अफसाने
welcome back to the special transmission that is taking a deep dive into the Pakistan-India situation that was developing and escalating fairly quickly because of India's aggression on the Pakistani borders and Pakistani sovereignty. But Pakistani valiant sons of the soil, Pakistani Air Force and the defense forces acted promptly and acted justly in a swift manner, defended sovereignty and integrity of the motherland. But when the world called for peace, Pakistan was there. Pakistan is there. Pakistan has been fighting terrorism and Pakistan has given 90,000 lives to this fight against terrorism. As we dive into the nooks and crannies of this topic, as we go in with all the information that we want to bring to you, we have our esteemed guests. Air Vice Marshal Saab was here earlier, retired Brigadier Saab was here earlier, and we held a discussion that went around how this culture of fake news in today's day and age has proved to be something which is nothing less of a poison for the Indian state's narrative. And now to develop this discussion further, we are joined by Dr. Adil Sultan Saab. He happens to be the Dean and Head of Department also for FASS and Air University. And Assalamu alaikum, sir. Welcome to the special transmission. And as we all are happy that a ceasefire is in place, we are also happy that we have defended our homeland successfully. Start with your take on the matter.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. And at the beginning, I would like to congratulate the entire nation because whatever we have achieved as a nation. Yes, institutions did play a major role in this, and you must have heard from the other panelists earlier. But I think this was something long overdue. As a nation, we had to prove to the outside world how once the chips are down, this nation can get united and fight against any odds. And we have proven it.
And taking India's history into account, when we see that our neighbor does not stick to promises, and also the fake and fabricated false flag operations that have been conducted first in Pulwama and then now in Pahalgam, every time there's an election nearby, now Bihar elections are popping up a couple of months down the road, Modi comes up with something and usually kills people of its own state, blames it on Pakistan, starts with the Jingoism, starts with the war frenzy. This ceasefire is very important because this time round the kinetic conflict was in full swing and regional peace was at stake. How do you think India will hold up to this ceasefire?
I'm personally a bit skeptical looking at the history of India's track record, and it is not only specific to Modi. As we see his earlier governments as well from 2001 and 2, and thereon we saw in 2008, in 2016, then 2019, the same playbook is being played again and again against Pakistan to corner Pakistan and to malign Pakistan as a state sponsor of terrorism. That's why I said it was long overdue that we had to confront this fake narrative and tell the world that we are not the issue or problem over here. It's your strategic partner. It's your India that you think is rising in this region, which can become a regional hegemon. That is the main problem. And I think the world has realized, we saw the support, how little support Indian government got to its narrative. Major powers, none of the major powers decisively or indicated full support to India. They were maintaining caution in their support, in their statements. And now what we see, President Trump clearly coming out and playing its role, the United States, and more importantly, indicating that he can play a role of a mediator to resolve the core issue, which is Kashmir. And if that happens, I think the other problems would all come in line. That's not major issues. The main core issue, if we start to discuss that and make some progress, we can do. Now, coming to the trust factor, we always have to take into consideration that India's strategic culture that has evolved over the past many years, that is based on misleading statements, deceits. They have always backed out of the commitments. We had this Lahore MOU in 1999. Then in 2004, we started this composite dialogue process with India. And we had several rounds of consultations between the two countries, encouraged by third parties, the outside actors. But the last we met was 2012. And for no reason, India stopped talking to Pakistan that it doesn't want to engage with Pakistan because it thought that it's a regional hegemon or a big player and it doesn't want to be hyphenated. It didn't want to be hyphenated with Pakistan. So it projected to the rest of the world that Pakistan is no more an issue for India. They are now a compatible power to China, and that's how they started to dehyphenate the relationship with Pakistan. So after this crisis, I think the sanity will prevail in Indian decision making. Their political leadership, their people will also realize that what their leadership had been telling them is all based on fake stories or narratives. So I think it was an important realization that was put in by our military, by our political leadership as a nation collectively.
Exactly, and managing this ceasefire and making sure that it is passed on diligently, the main point of reason is to discuss the Jammu and Kashmir issue, which has been a long-standing issue, and India has been disregarding the UN resolutions passed on the Azad Jammu and Kashmir issue. And it is high time the international community recognizes that these cross-border conflicts and incidents are actually not caused by any disinstances between these countries, but it is because the Kashmir issue is left unresolved under international law and is being disregarded by India again and again. So how is this going to play out in the next few days? How are we supposed to resolve this conflict and finally bring the international community to realize that this is integral and important in maintaining the South and Central Asian peace in this region?
It's going to be a long, drawn-out process. We will not find any solutions in the near term, but what we need to do is that we establish a sound basis with the help of outside interlocutors who are interested in resolving this issue. So if we agree on the fundamentals that this process that we are going to hopefully start, if India doesn't back out, it should end up into a meaningful outcome, not just the previous dialogues that were just for the sake of talking. We have to walk the talk this time. And now we are coming from a position of strength. What India had been projecting to the rest of the world, that Pakistan has no chance standing against it, and it projected itself as a regional hegemon. That has also proven wrong. Now coming to this how it will unfold, I think our strategic objectives have to be very clear. It is not about if they just undo Indus Water or they just go back on their Indus Water Treaty, that abrogation process, or they do something about 370. It has to be very comprehensive, because in the end, the core issue is Kashmir. So anything which leads towards resolution of that issue, we should support that. The question that you asked, how international community views India's stance or has been viewing, I think the rest of the world did understand India's limitations, and they did understand the complications between India and Pakistan, but it was a larger geopolitical interest of the major powers that they wanted to prop India against China or build India's stature as a major power for their own short-term political interest. Now that realization, I think, has seeped in amongst those powers, that India is still even not a regional power. So they probably have put their bets on the wrong horse, and it will take time. India is a big country; it has more resources. It will try to again rise, but we don't have to compete with India in that terms. What we need to do is whatever India wants to do, it can do. Whatever the rest of the world wants India to play its role, they should. But between India and Pakistan, I think the fundamental core issues have to be resolved, and then we can move on our separate paths or together for the regional benefit or peace and security.
As you mentioned that Kashmir, this issue is going to be a long drawn out process. When we take the leadership and diplomacy of Indian leadership into account, we see a lot of immaturity on that front. Has this episode played out to be a diplomatic failure of embarrassing proportions for India on the international stage?
Phenomenal embarrassment for India. Look at their posturing, look at their statements before April 22, Prime Minister Modi's statements, his public utterances for political, short-term political interests. Now you don't see any of those statements, bellicose statements coming from the Indian leadership. And the media, which was being misled by Indian establishment or Indian government, they are themselves now criticizing India for one, for feeding them fake stories, pushing them to spread the fake narrative, and secondly, buckling under US pressure because it was India which went to United States for ceasefire, not Pakistan this time. This is significant because Indian leadership or Indian government would sell a different narrative. But we have the authoritative sources like the credible international news agencies like CNN. They have said there proofs that India was the one which went to United States for a ceasefire because it couldn't withstand the pressure or the repost or the counteroffensive that was launched by Pakistan.
Now, taking into account, sir, Pakistan has been making strides in the business sphere as well. SIFC and the foreign direct investment facilitations and everything that is going on right now with the mining projects, the RICODEC, we are seeing a lot of investment flow in towards Pakistan in these projects that are of world class. RICODEC is a mine that is second to none in this world, and with the kind of resource that this world is interested in on the Pakistan side in Pakistani soil, do you think the key players in this game would have allowed this conflict to escalate any further?
Yes, they have their own interest, but once it comes to India and Pakistan, there are limitations with the external powers or the key players, the external actors. It is quite difficult to restrain both sides. The kind of emotion that there are between amongst the general public, it would have been quite difficult for those actors to restrain because against India, the whole nation, they cannot accept any violation of our sovereign territory or integrity. So we saw that despite our internal differences, minor differences that happens in every society, once it came to India and our existence, we stood united. And I don't think so there was any leverage for anyone not to respond against India's challenge. So that's the nature of confrontation or relation that we have with India. So whether economic interest or no interest, I think once it comes to India, the fundamental issue is that we have to defend our motherland.
Exactly, and you highlighted how the Indus Water Treaty issue is still been unresolved between Pakistan and India, and this is actually very integral in regards to how water is actually the essence of life. Water is a basic human necessity, and India is using this as a tool of aggression against Pakistan. So if this goes unresolved, approximately 280 million people are going to be affected by this disrupted water flow. So how important is it for Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to talk these things out and to come to a resolve with this water issue?
From my perspective, there is no unresolved issue related to Indus Water Treaty. This was a treaty that was negotiated 60 years ago, and World Bank is the third party. There are no outstanding issues. However, if some countries have some reservations or India has some reservation, there is always a mechanism for bilateral consultation to move ahead. Otherwise, there were no unresolved issues, and that is why India, once they tried to do it through the other processes, and Pakistan said we cannot agree to that because we have our own requirements, they adopted the Samson option by cutting off or terminating that IWT unilaterally, which is illegal. No international law allows that because there is no mechanism in the IWT to withdraw or terminate that treaty. If there are any irritants, those have to be resolved by the two countries and involving the third party, that is World Bank.
Exactly.
So when we talk about the credibility on the international stage, let's discuss Pakistan a little in the light of this conflict, because India tried to malign Pakistan's image with twisted narratives. It was the Pahalgam operation. After that, India did not provide any substantial evidence that could be held as concrete evidence. Pakistan did not shy away from coming forward, as Pakistan was clear on the conscience side, because Pakistan said that we are here and we are ready for an impartial investigation into the matter. Let's find out who's behind this and let's punish them. Let's talk about Pakistan's credibility and the gain that Pakistan has gained due to India's aggression and Pakistan being on the defensive foot with regards to this conflict.
I think that is important because over the past several years, India has been propagating to the rest of the world that Pakistan is state sponsor of terrorism. And unfortunately, Many of the times we buckled under pressure and became defensive in our narratives, sometimes obliging international community, obliging India, taking actions. I don't think so, that playbook has played this time again, because India tried to replicate the same model that it had been doing for the past many years. Like I said, 2001 and 2, 2008 and 2019 crisis, and even 2016 one. The same playbook. The international community now has realized that same script cannot be replayed. And what Pakistan had been telling to the rest of the world, that it is not sponsoring any terror act. Whatever is happening inside Kashmir is indigenous. They have the right to fight for their own independence. That has been enshrined in the UN Charter, as per the UN Charter. So Pakistan shouldn't be blamed. But post 9/11, India had been using the same template that United States has used to malign other countries for sponsoring terrorism. India thought that it is United States and started using it against Pakistan. This time, Pakistan, I'm very happy that Pakistan decision makers, they thought enough is enough, and we are not going to accept this. Either you provide us proof, provide proof to the rest of the world, or face the consequences. And this is how it played out. India's credibility now has been questioned, because even during the crisis, even before Pakistan had not responded, what we saw that there was no sympathy to India's narrative. International news agencies, notwithstanding some of the news agencies who were biased, and again harping the same narrative of terrorism against Pakistan, the objective media, the political leadership of several countries, they encourage India to provide evidence before they can do something. And India failed to provide that evidence. Now it has shattered India's credibility, which was always questionable in our eyes, and we had been telling to the rest of the world that whatever India tells you, please don't believe, go for the facts, go for the investigations yourself. And this time, I think the international community also realized that enough is enough with India's narrative. They have to take a stance, and we saw the outcome now.
When we take into account the constant fake propaganda and the fake news, and for the creation of a narrative that does not exist, forcing something into existence, India seems to be at the forefront of this type of a mission every time something pops up. So when Pakistan downed 5 fighter jets on the Indian side, and Indians were in a constant state of denial, coming out and saying that our jets have not been downed, France confirmed within a few hours that indeed jets have been downed. What was your reaction on this?
Yeah, that was very interesting, because that one episode in a very short span of time, it provided a strategic blow to India's strategic thinking. And we saw what we saw after that, the downing of 5 aircraft. The Indian Air Force was almost absent from the scenario, from the battlefield. I think that was a major blow. And if you inflict that kind of punishment to your adversary at the very start, it does affect their national psyche overall, the leadership and the public and the media. So they were being fed with fake narrative by the governments that they have shot down some of the Pakistani aircraft, but they couldn't come up with proof. We had proofs. The international media was coming up with proofs. The French came out, the Americans came out that yes, they have the evidence that Indian aircraft were shot, and these were shot. And probably Pakistan Air Force will also bring out this evidence sometimes later if required, because these days everything is documented, recorded, video recordings are there. And you saw that briefing of Deputy Chief of Air Staff Operations. They have every electronic evidence of each and every fight or combat that took place. So if India tries to back out, Pakistan will show to the rest of the world those evidences. So I think that was very significant. Yeah, please.
Taking into account the weak steps that India has been taking, do you think there is a problem with their think tanks that provide the weak solutions for problems that don't exist, the problems that they've been trying to force into existence?
Their think tanks, as I have interacted with them personally, they were quite mature, but this time I was amazed to see some of the very senior thinkers or the opinion makers going the same line what their Indian government wanted to do that. And in that process, they have lost their credibility amongst the Western audience, as well as other observers who thought Indian think tanks, they provide objective assessment. So that's also a big blow to the credibility of India's strategic literature, which we always thought is quite objective, rational, and sometimes critical of India's policy. And that's how these think tanks should work. So that's another fatality, or I think something out of this crisis. We have seen the hollowness of their strategic thinking. So coming to weak solutions, I don't know. In India and Pakistan, we do not have that culture where think tanks provide any inputs and they are taken seriously by the policy makers. Because that's a unique culture, unlike the Western think tanks, where they do serious studies and the policy making circles do take into account those things. We have a different, most of the think tanks in India and Pakistan are engaged in narrative building, and not really, it's not a critique, it's kind of a culture. We haven't evolved that culture as yet, where we can do such serious thinking which can in real terms help the policy making process. The shortcomings are there on the part of think tanks as well, and something to do with our culture as well.
Exactly, and India has been spreading false narratives against Pakistan, even though it claims to be one of the largest democracies of the world. It has tried to silence Pakistani media, not just large-scale media houses, but also individual content creators across multiple platforms like X, Instagram, and YouTube. So how does this reflect on Modi's BJPized and jingoistic aggressive government and their media?
Authoritarian or dictators, they do indulge in such kind of practices. Sometimes we try to mislead our own population that this is new form of information warfare, but we tend to forget people have their own minds and media has its own dynamics. You can feed false narratives to an extent, but if you go beyond that, in this age, you cannot hide the truth. For example, they continue to tell their own population there have been no attacks, no losses on the Indian side, and we saw the videos on the social media where Indians, they were posting about the attacks on the bases. And likewise on the Pakistani side, whatever Indian policymakers fed to their own people, the kind of emotions or public support on the Pakistani streets, people looking for drones and doing some funny things with those toys, no fear, no panic. So information warfare is important, integral part of this modern warfare, but there are limitations and not everybody is able to understand. We continue to harp on this kind of new form of warfare, but it is very important. And I would just take this opportunity to also acknowledge the efforts done by Pakistani media. Yes. Unlike Indian media, we didn't go overboard. We were not being jingoistic in our statements. We were talking on facts, and the information which was being fed to the media was credible. We were not making any false claims from where we had to backtrack. I think the kind of responsibility demonstrated by media, it is very positive thing. And I must also mention something about the social media. The moment Twitter was unbanned and you saw that your people, the public, the Generation Z, the youngsters, they all were working towards national narrative in their own domains. Nobody was guiding them. So that's kind of a natural sentiment amongst the public. So that also gives me a great hope that if you allow the young generation or independent thinkers, the outcome is always positive, because it is the kind of indigenous, natural, organic thought process which comes into social media or media, and that becomes more credible than as compared to a fabricated media that we saw on the Indian side. So my compliments to the entire Pakistani media, PTV, other private channels. They did a wonderful job by running 24 hours transmission, continuously updating their people, and I think that's very important in times of crisis. People want to have credible information, and these media channels they played a very constructive role.
Right, and taking this jingoistic approach of Modi and BJP, the RSS Hindutva-backed mindset, an expansionist plan that is very evident on the international scale. When we take into account global politics and international relations, we saw America's stance change. And it changed from it's a Pakistan and India problem to brokering the ceasefire. What, in your opinion, could have prompted that change in the stance?
I'll be very careful about this third-party role that United States is willing to play, because we cannot forget that United States and India has a very deep-rooted strategic partnership, which started in 2004 and 5 with this Indo-US strategic partnership. The contours of those Indo-US strategic partnership, or the seeds of that partnership, was laid in 2000, as early as 2004. As part of that partnership, there's so many components, and if you go deeper into that, the kind of partnership in nuclear cooperation, in emerging technologies, space, AI, artificial intelligence, military equipment, joint production of those. Now, all these elements of the strategic partnership were meant to build India as a regional power and to prop up it against China. So that it can continue to irritate China, because that's the larger interest of United States in this region. They don't want China to rise or confront United States, so they were propping up India. Through this tactical move, whatever United States wants to do, probably they want to give a breather to India. India was humiliated, its military image has been tarnished as a credible military power, so they may be using the in the end, India, United States interest align. We have to be realistic in that sense. Our and Chinese interest also align. United States is an important player. Yes, we have to have good relation with United States. But as you asked the question about the larger geopolitical landscape, India and United States are moving towards a direction where you cannot dehyphenate them or you cannot influence their bilateral relations. So that's the kind of strategic partnership. And this episode, the short conflict between India and Pakistan, this is not going to change United States' approach in the long run. So India will remain close. These episodes does affect India's credibility, but United States will make efforts not to not to do anything which is against Indian interests significantly. So they want India on their side.
So just a short opinion of yours that I require, that as our economy is moving towards improvement now because of the investment that's coming in towards Pakistan, and how all of the departments are working in a synchronized manner, is India threatened because of Pakistan's future that seems to be very bright in the near future? And second part, if India is threatened, are these border conflicts and these skirmishes that are being pushed onto us to destabilize that economic success that we're moving towards?
We cannot make these comparisons between India and Pakistan in terms of economic trajectory. India is a population of 1.5 billion. It's a huge country. It may have its own interest. We have our own interest and economic trajectory. We do not necessarily have to compete with India in economic terms or the military terms or in any other terms. Both countries can coexist peacefully if their bilateral disputes are resolved. So in terms of threatening, I don't think so India should be threatened by Pakistan's economic stability or rise, and that should not be the reason for pricking Pakistan time and again. It's again related to larger geopolitics. United States doesn't want China's ingress in this region or hold in this region or influence being spread. So China or India provides that opportunity, and it sells that narrative to the Western world that help us build our military power, our political stature, so that we can confront China. And that's what is sellable and acceptable in the West, and they continue to do that. We cannot play that role against China. That's very clear. And that's why the confrontation starts. So India wants Pakistan to remain unstable. So the economic developments are in a way hampered. The China doesn't have strong footholds and access to the other regions, the West Asia or other parts of the world through Pakistan, because that CPEC is one important significant component of the BRI, the overall larger strategic objective of China. So I think that's related to larger geopolitics. As long as our differences on this trajectory are there, there would be influence of the major powers, and unfortunately Pakistan and India would continue to remain embroiled because of their preferences and their own security. So bottom line is, the India and Pakistan both have to realize that economic development is good for the entire region, for their own people. So both can coexist peacefully if they can have economic interdependence as well. So we do not have to fight others' war in this region. So that if we agree on that principle, that our bilateral differences we can resolve, and we should not be playing or any role that suits the interest of the extra regional powers, because in the end it affects directly our own people and our own economy and our own security. But unfortunately, that's how realpolitik is. We are a relatively smaller country, but a very strong country. But there are certain influences where the relatively smaller countries, they can have limitations because of the strength of the national elements of national power.
All right, and we want to dive into how the Pakistani army was able to conduct a successful mission and give India a very befitting response to their basis aggressions, and how we were actually able to target the India's S-400 system in Adampur, which actually caused them a $1.5 billion loss. So, during these operations, how important is following the operational chain of command?
This was a joint military operations, initially led by Pakistan Air Force, and we all saw that. But in today's modern warfare, there has to be synergy amongst all these services: your naval operations, the air operations, military operations, the cyber operations, and other instruments of warfare. So I think we have to give credit to the entire military, the entire services, as those in uniform and those who are not in uniform, because there is a significant segment of soldiers who are not in uniform, who are involved in cyber warfare and other things. So that's how we should take this. And that synergy that we demonstrated during this operation, that wherever the air operations were required, the Air Force led that. Wherever the missiles were required, ballistic missiles, the Army led those. And the Navy side, they continue to ensure that deterrence remains there on the sea side, because they had moved their aircraft carrier as well. So if you demonstrate your potential to resist that kind of pressure from the seaside as well, only then you can apply pressure on the other legs of your military engagement. So I think it's not one service, and as a nation we should understand it was a classic example of joint operations where all these services perform their role. And in modern warfare, what happens is joint operations, you use the instrument or these tools which are more relevant, which can give you more impact at that particular time. So probably the Air Force had more role this time, so that's how the Air Force came out taking a lead, because the future operations or future warfare is more related to everything connected with space and air operation. That's how the Air Force got some significance, but overall it was jointly done operations by all the three services and people who were not in uniform, dealing with cyber issues and other aspects.
Well, in that, if India decides to, well, we are a little short on time over here, I'm being told, unfortunately, but it was a very candid discussion and it was a great one. All those opinions and all of those views that you provided us with of absolute value. Thank you for joining us here at PTV World, and inshallah ta'ala we will have a chat again on this topic. And with this, now, do you think, Eesha, that Pakistan is at a crossroads where we are moving towards business prowess and business success, and then we've got these distractions that come along every now and then?
Exactly. This is what I was thinking as well. Every time Pakistan is on the road of success, where investments are being poured into us and we are flourishing as a nation, some sort of conspiracy against us is conducted, some sort of issue is instigated, which leads us to fall into a little slip. But it is very great that we have our integral and our strong, resilient Pakistani army on our borders and on the seas and in the air protecting us. And
Right.
Other than that, we have our strong diplomatic front. Pakistan always strives for peace and has always moved forward in a peaceful and diplomatic manner, which is why we are so grateful that we have such a a conclusive and a very strategic nation.
Yes, and with this, I would now like to engage Shahid KIANI, our former ambassador, here with us, who is joining us online. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Welcome. A great day for Pakistan and a great win for Pakistan. What are your emotions and what are your views?
The Modi government must have realized the blunder it committed. As they say, he didn't do its own homework. And by leveling, unsubstantiated allegations against us, and then the result is in front of them, that they lost, first of all, militarily they lost. And the second thing, which is the image the Modi government has damaged, that it continues to level allegations against Pakistan, unsubstantiated, and globally sharing that Pakistan is terrorist country and that. And now it came to know, to be honest, I tell you, the Indian population which elected this prime minister for the third time should rethink that is this leader worth leading this country? This is something very, very, this is a time for the Indian population and the Indian government and the party BJP to ponder over this miscalculation and the blunder it committed. And it lost heavily, both in terms of the militarily, the loss which it suffered, and in the terms of the image that the country has been dented.
When we talk about international relations between states, when we are taking into account what India has recently played out, the embarrassing media campaigns that they have put themselves into, the claims that they made, and without proof, they failed to provide any proof, any substantial evidence. Now the world was watching because we are living in 2025. It's not like we're living in the 70s or the 80s. Do you think that India has spoiled for itself this soup?
Absolutely. Few days back, if you see, the State Department spokeslady, she stated, and which resonated with globally, she stated, and what our Prime Minister has been saying, that let's hold an international inquiry into this allegation which you have leveled against us, the killing in Indian occupied Kashmir. And Prime Minister Modi didn't listen to it. And now we are now I shall thank the United States, and in which it intervened and put sense in, I'll tell you, more sense in Prime Minister Modi's government, that's to have a ceasefire. So this is something which, and now the second step would be, and I've been saying it on this channel for a long time, that now is the time for the two leadership to sit in some neutral place and rethink more on in terms of for India to rethink what this is this the way to conduct relations with a neighbor. The correct path would be for a peaceful coexistence would be to sit on the table and sort out the issues which are creating problems for these two countries. One is the Kashmir dispute, and the second one, which I say is more important now, is the Indus Water Treaty, which the Indians say that they put it to abeyance. This is something, these two things are interconnected and they should be resolved sitting across the table. And India should decide once and for all that hegemonic its policy does not work. It does not have normal relations with any of its neighbors, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and now Pakistan. So this is something that the Indian government should reflect. And globally also, United States has been supporting India for a long time in trying to contain China. It didn't work. So I think it's time now for global leaders to put sense into India that this is not the manner in which it should conduct its foreign policy and should conduct a relationship with its neighbors.
Definitely, sir. When you were mentioning about all those neighboring states with India, what in your words I could sense was that these states are not really comfortable with how India is conducting itself in the region. How uncomfortable are these states?
I have served in one country and visited the other. I served in Bangladesh and then visited Bhutan and Nepal. I tell you, you talk to people in the streets, they're extremely uncomfortable, overbearing, as they say, for the people. That in Bangladesh, the Indian businesses and Indian media houses that have stranglehold on these countries. Go to Nepal in the street and they talk to you, and they are also extremely uncomfortable. In Bhutan, people are little more, they are uncomfortable, but they will not be sharing it with you. But you could see if you talk to their officials that they are really very, very uncomfortable with what's happening and how the India has been conducting its relations with these neighbors. Meaning, India should realize that these are smaller countries. It should give them more, as I say, more oxygen for them to breathe. But what they're doing is they're strangleholding these countries. Look at what Pakistan since 1947 till today. We fought wars and conflicts. And the latest one is, to be honest, I tell you, for India, is a wake-up call. And for the people of India to realize that would this leadership continue and would it be a peaceful coexistence with these neighbors? This is something the people of India and the global part which is supporting India should realize.
Exactly. And in the past few days, the situation was very tense between India and Pakistan, and now we have finally reached a conclusion of the ceasefire. So since you have stayed as a diplomatic ambassador over a course of period of time, so how do you think back channel diplomacy plays an integral role when situations are tense between countries?
India, prior to the Modi's government, Vajpayee's government was far more practical in dealing with Pakistan. It had realized that antagonistic relationship with its neighbors cannot work. But since the coming of the Modi government, I do not know what Prime Minister Modi wants from Pakistan. I have yet to understand. It's 6 times bigger than us. They have a big economy, the largest population in the world. It is economically more strong. I do not know what they want from Pakistan. In my opinion, if it wants to prosper, it needs to have peaceful relationship with its neighbors. But unfortunately, the BJP government, led by especially Prime Minister Modi, has not been able to understand. And now this is a wake-up call. This is a turning point for India. And not only for that, but the countries which support India, they should realize that it doesn't work. I look at now, why on earth do you think that President Trump has been intervened, putting sense into India, more India? Because other global issues are more at stake. The Ukraine war, the Gaza, the nuclear negotiations which the U.S. is conducting with Iran, and then the forthcoming visit of President Trump to the Gulf countries, especially to Saudi Arabia. He cannot afford this distraction imposed upon the world by the Indian government. So let's hope sanity prevails in India, especially within the Modi government, and realize that enough is enough.
Well, Shahid KIANI Saab, thank you for joining us on PTV World and providing us with your candid review on these topics and all of the details that you've provided and your analysis on where India is headed next. Ceasefire is in place, and for our viewers, it's a good news because our valiant sons of the soil have successfully defended the motherland, its integrity, its sovereignty, and will continue to do so. There was amazing synergy between the Pakistani people and the Pakistani armed forces, and there was amazing coordination. There was amazing heart and spirit that was felt here. This is all for now from this transmission. It's Muzzammil and Eesha signing off. Take care.